A new adventure suddenly began. A new battle that needs new weapons. A higher level of challenges requires a higher level of perseverance as well. Yet, we believe the Filipino youth cannot be stopped striving. Therefore, Mind and Integrity College is joyful to invite you in a webinar entitled Recalibrating Study Habits to the New Normal Environment. Join us this coming December 4, 2020 from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Enjoy a day of learning as practical and wise counsels pour out from our honorable speakers, Dr. Elvira B. Katangay, Chief School Governance and Operation Division, OIC Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, and a public servant, and also Dr. Elsie Antero Gagabe, Education Program Specialist, Department of Education, Division of Davao City. Recalibrate your passion for learning. Recalibrate your learning habits and never ever stop from soaring. This is my college, my webinar, my calibration, my school, and my home.
To formally start this event, a webinar entitled Recalibrating Study Habits in this New Normal Environment through the efforts of the grade 12 Colossians of Hume's Department. Please be with us for the singing of the National Anthem and Doxology.
Lord, I stand in the midst of a multitude of those from every tribe and tongue. We are your people, redeemed by your blood, rescued from death by your love. There are no words good enough to thank you. There are no words to express my praise, but I will lift up my voice and sing from my heart with all my strength. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah, hallelujah, by the blood of Christ we stand. Every tongue, every tribe, every people, every praise unto the Lamb of God. Lord, we stand by your grace in your presence, cleansed by the blood of the Lamb. We are your children, called by your name. Humbly we bow when we pray. Release your power to work in us and through us, till we are changed to be more like you. Then all the nations will sing your glory reveal and worship you. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah, hallelujah. By the blood of Christ we stand. Every tongue, every tribe, every people, every land, giving glory, giving honor, giving praise unto the Lamb. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah, hallelujah. By the blood of Christ we stand. Every tongue, every tribe, every people, every land, giving glory, giving honor, giving praise unto the Lamb of God. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that you are the Lord. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah, hallelujah. By the blood of Christ we stand. Every tongue, every tribe, every people, every land, giving glory, giving honor, giving praise unto the Lamb of God. Giving praise unto the Lamb of God. Giving praise unto the Lamb of God. Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God.
Thank you very much. To give us his opening remarks, may I present to you Mr. Richard Ramos, the class advisor of the section Colossians.
Good day, I'm Sir Richard Ramos. On behalf of the faculty members, administrators, Ms. Christian Liz Manaletsan, our school president, Ms. Ruthie Cortez, Vice President for Administration, Ms. Milagros Alba, Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Edwin T. Casilla, our school director, Mr. Romeo Nicolas, guidance counselor and facilitator of this webinar, guest speakers, and section Colossians. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar entitled Recalibrating Study Habits in the New Normal Environment. The aim of this webinar is to help our students adapt in the new normal environment through flexible learning and new ways to improve student study habits. I hope you will stay with us until the end of this seminar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramos. And now it is truly an honor to present to you our first guest speaker. She is the Chief of School Governance and Operations Division and the concurrent officer in charge of the Office of the Assistant Schools Division Superintendent of DepEd Laguna Province Division. She is also a dedicated public servant. Audience, our first speaker for today's webinar Dr. Elvira Katangan.
Good morning, Mind and Integrity College and Senior High School students. How are you today? Are you feeling great? Yes? Say, God is great all the time. I hope everyone is in the proper shape despite our situation. Well, I feel elated to Mind and Integrity College and Corporation through your principal, Dr. Edwin Casilla, for having me this morning. I am given an hour to share with you on the topic Recalibrating Study Habits to the New Normal Environment with the theme Community Engagement, Solidarity, and Citizenship. So, what do we have for this session? I have prepared 3 objectives. First is to identify the different modalities and remote learning. Secondly, you will be able to discover learning styles and your learning preferences. And hopefully, the third is you would be able to encapsulate study habits in the new normal. In the next slide, you would see the trivia question. I have posted there what brings us into this situation. And undeniably, COVID-19 has brought us to this situation at the moment for almost 9 months. COVID-19 has brought us fears and the feeling of uncertainty from all walks of life. The pandemic has changed our daily lives, the way we live in all aspects of human life, mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, and spiritually. It has changed the way we do our business. It has changed the way we work. It has changed the way we interact and socialize, and even our way of learning, in which the word new normal has come to our part of daily circulation, along with other words like quarantine, social distancing, stay at home, and like in the picture, the face mask, wearing face mask, face shields, and everything. And that is the reason why we are doing this kind of webinar. But in this unprecedented situation that we are in, learning must continue. As our Secretary Leonor Magtoles Briones keep reiterating in her series of press conferences, that COVID-19 cannot stop our education, the education of the more than 21 million students, especially in the basic education. And how do we continue our education in this pandemic time, which in the case, adapting the new normal in learning and embracing the new normal in learning is the answer. And what will change in this situation? So creating a new normal for the future of education is the greatest challenge, not only in the Philippines, but in the entire world. How do we address this education challenge? So of course, through remote learning. And what are the different learning modes in the remote learning or the what we call distance education? So whether you are in the public, in the private, or in the tertiary education, we have no other choice but to adjust in the provision of education to all our students through the adoption of various learning delivery modes. So we are familiar with the online learning, and we heard the word online platforms like what we are using now. We can also achieve our and pursue our education to education TV broadcast na napapanood natin sa IBC 13. And then also for the farthest area, we can utilize radio broadcast. And we have also the most familiar one, the printed or digital modular learning mode. So all these modalities put into one the what we call distance learning. But putting any combination of these learning modalities, now they are called blended learning. So maybe your school is adapting both the modular and the online learning modes, and that is the what we call blended learning. But whatever modality you are in now, the fact is that the power of technology is inevitable. And that gives sense that technology nowadays is no longer a luxury but a necessity. But using the technology again is another challenge, not only to me, not only to your colleagues, to your classmates, but to anyone who do not have access to technology. And I want you to emphasize whatever learning modality we adopt, and in the comfort and conveniences to have those access to this platform, have the respective advantages and disadvantages. And there might be situations that it can't fully utilize the learning environment to bring out the best potential of the students. So I have gathered survey from 197 junior high school, senior high school students and teachers to give us the concrete positive and negative impact of these learning modalities in the education of our children. And the result revealed to us this one. Under the modular learning modality, the advantages are, according to the respondents, students can easily and do activity on their own pace. Tama po ba? Another is flexibility, and you are given the choices to choose which modality you want to use. Another is students or participants able to manage their time. Then easy access and availability because the module is in your hand and within your reach. And also the participants able to review activities and outputs before submission. And another best advantage is the cost effective, because you do not need to ask baon from your parents to go to school. You don't need to take a ride to go to school. You are just at the comfort of your homes to learn. But despite these advantages, it has also disadvantages. And what are these? So, according to the participants, gathered result is the modules have incomplete instructions and limited examples. Usually, we hear it over, so we watch it and read this over social media. Then also disadvantage is the absence of the teacher. And because the teacher is not around, less effective transfer of learning. Because you cannot ask questions and the SLMs cannot answer back to you. Too many activities and content overloads because we are on the transition stage. And there is also a test of integrity and honesty. Why? Because nobody looking at you, you are tempted to Google search, to browse and to copy answers from the modules for submission. And lastly, for the disadvantage is the energy and resources depletion. Why? Because the more modules we reproduce and we printed, the more trees are being cut. And in the reproduction of these modules, then we consume ink and electricity. How about on the other learning mode, the online one? What are the advantages then? So for the online, so the gathered results reveal that there is a virtual interaction, right? Like what we are doing now. Then the students can ask questions and seek guidance right away. Another advantage is increased convenience and flexibility. And then real-time responses and time management, because during participation on the online class or the online engagement, the facilitator will only throw the Google Sheet or whatever inline tools, and you can have the answers and we can get the answers. Then also online mode is hassle-free for sending outputs, especially if you have a strong internet connection. As quick as a wink, isang kisap mata, isang pindot lang ng daliri, lipad na yung ating output. But there are also disadvantages. And what are these? Of course, all the advantages could be on the negative part, especially if you have poor internet connectivity. Then, if we have the poor internet connectivity, the common scenario and experiences is internet lagging or interrupted online engagement. Ano ang sinasabi? Nalaglag ako, na-disconnect ako. Kaya nga ang biruan ngayon, pag sinabing nalaglag ako ay pakitingin at baka nabalian na lang buto. Joke, okay. Then another disadvantage is the issues on plagiarism and cheating. Similar to modular, you are tempted also to copy-paste the answer. So, nag-plagiarize na kayo. Then, limited time exposure. Yes, because we have to follow the suggested required number of hours to screen exposure. Then, technical resources. If we do not know the know-hows of using the technology, then that is a big disadvantage on our end. And also, the health risk and radiation. Because in online, you will fully engage from morning till evening and overnight pa because of the overloading activities to be accomplished. Okay, how about in the blended learning? So in the blended learning, combination of any of the learning modalities, okay, then, so according to our participants, the results reveal that this blended learning offers flexibility in terms of availability. Why? Because you have the module now, you have the gadgets, you have the online opportunity. So, may flexibility ka, which is which. And because of that, you have two options. Then, according to them, it gives them good grades. And the results is more credible for learning. And it is somewhat like to face. The only difference that is our wall is the screen because we can see each other virtually. Then attendance is optional. Why optional? You have the option eh. You can choose online if you want to join online. But if you do not want to join online, you have the module. And what are the post disadvantages then of the blended learning? Task overload. Why task overload? For both teachers and students, because the teacher have to prepare the lessons, all the activities, have to gather time, and that is time consuming on them. But on the part of the students, mabilis yung pacing. You have to cope up. You have to follow the facilitation of the teacher. Eh kung may internet lagging ka, eh di huli ka na naman. And then also the health risk. Why health risk? Kasi lagi kang nakatutok sa iyong gadget at the same time ay nagmo-multitask ka and that is not very good for our mental activity. Then another thing is because maiiwan ka, you cannot observe your bladder break, you cannot eat on time, o di ba? So yan ang mga health risk natin. Then too much exposure, it will cause our strained eye. And then, focus and distraction also. Why focus and distraction? So, yung focus natin, because nagmo-multitask tayo, hindi tayo makapag-concentrate. And lack of focus and distracted tayo, it creates lower productivity level on the quality of our transfer of learning. Distraction, what are the common music? Tilaok ng manok, kalampag ng pinggan, iyak ng bata, music ng kapitbahay, kalampag ng mga pinto, and many others. And I know you are experiencing that, alright? So, totoo naman yan. Then, moving forward, why I am telling this to you? Because on our second objective, you will be able to identify your learning styles and learning preferences. I have prepared here a 30-item statement on how you can assess your learning styles. So what you're gonna do is to answer each statement having these options. To what extent that the following statement apply to you? A lot of you? If it is a lot of you, tick that option. Is the statement tells somewhat like you? Then tick that option. Is the statement tells not like you? Then tick this option. I will be sharing this link. Please access and open it. You will be given 5 minutes to do the activity. But because this is a pre-recorded presentation, at the end of 5 minutes and you fail to finish answering all the 30 statements, please continue answering and I'll get back to you at the end of our presentation. Are you ready? If you are ready, then make sure the link is already accessed. Are you ready? So now, I will start our set time clock. Again, just answer the statement what fits to your observe and practice learning activities doing at home or even in the school before our face-to-face setup. And your time starts now. Right, so your time now is over. Now, you are introduced in that particular activity to different learning styles. Now, how did you find the assessment? Were you able to identify or determine or discover your learning style? So, there are three common learning styles. At saan kayo naandiyan? Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Or are you a kinesthetic learner? And why this matter to understand relative to our topic on recalibrating your study habits in the new normal environment. And knowing your learning styles make you able to achieve your desired or motivated performance. But all of this depends on you. And to have a moving explanation of these different learning styles, please watch this 8-minute video clip.
Hello everyone, welcome to Clipboard Classes. Today we're going to talk about different styles of learning. Some people say there's 4, some people say there's 7. We're going to look at the 4 main styles of learning today. Okay, let's get started. Everybody learns in different ways. Some people learn better in groups, and some people learn better by themselves. Some people can read books and remember all the facts, and some people can't. Have you ever sat looking at a page in a book and you're staring at the words, but none of the information is going into your head? That might be because you're not suited to this learning style. It's interesting to know what style we are so we can study and learn better in the future by using learning styles that are better suited for us. The 4 main styles of learning we're going to look at today is visual learning, auditory learning, kinesthetic learning, and reading and writing. Okay, let's take a look at them one by one. The first one we're going to look at is visual learners. They prefer to see the information and visualize it in their heads, thinking about the relationships and the ideas. This kind of learner likes charts, pictures, and maps. So let's look at some tips for visual learners. The first one, color coding. So that means using different colors to code your notes. You could say, I'm going to make all the dates yellow, I'm going to make the verbs green, or I'm going to make the maths formula red. You can use these different colors to help you break down your notes and color code it to make it easier for you. Another way is using flashcards with pictures or formulas. You could have a flashcard like this with a picture on one side and the English word on the next. Or you could make a flashcard with a formula. So you could have A is ADJ plus ER than B, bigger and smaller. It helps you visualize the information. You can also draw on your notes. Visual learners obviously they like pictures, so drawing on the notes will help. But personally, my favorite is post-it notes and sticky notes. Okay, these are great for learning. I will write a date or the new word or a sentence or an important fact, and then I can peel it off, stick it anywhere in my house or on my desk, in my book, and it will help me. I can make a map with these post-its, and it will help me remember the important things and visualize it. Okay, let's look at the next one. So the second one we're going to look at is auditory learners. Now, auditory learners like to use their ears. They love to listen to information rather than reading it. And if you can always remember what somebody said, then you might be an auditory learner. So let's look at some tips for auditory learners. The first one is read aloud. So when you're reviewing your notes, say them out loud. People might think you're crazy. I suggest you do it at home in your bedroom, not in the library, but it will help you remember and help you learn. You can also discuss with a partner or a group the idea or the information, and that will help you listen to it. You could also listen to podcasts if you want to learn by listening. You could find a podcast about the subject you're interested in, and you can listen to it. You could also make voice memos on your phone. All the phones have a voice recorder, so you can make some voice memos about the notes, and you can listen to them when you're walking to school or walking to work. Okay, let's look at the next one. So the third one we're going to look at is kinesthetic learners. It's a long one. Kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners learn by doing hands-on problem solving or hands-on activities. They like making and creating things, and they probably don't like to sit in long lectures or long classes where they can't do something. A kinesthetic learner would prefer to go and fix the bike rather than reading a book about how to fix the bike. They'd like to learn by doing, so they would prefer to just try and learn as they go. Let's look at some tips for kinesthetic learners. Studying in short blocks of time. If a kinesthetic learner tried to sit down for 2 or 3 hours with a book, they probably won't learn much. But if they sat down for 20 minutes and then had a 5-minute break, did another 20 minutes, these short blocks of time will help them learn. Another thing they can do is to walk or move while they're reviewing their notes or maybe reading a book. If you physically move and physically walk around, or maybe you throw a ball or you have a fidget spinner, you're going to find it much easier to remember your notes. The last one is a role play in class. Maybe there's an opportunity to make a role play. If you're learning new words, you could maybe do a role play about the new words. If you're learning a language, you could make a short role play with maybe a shopkeeper and a customer or something. A role play will help you because it's physical. You're moving while learning. Okay, let's look at the last one. So the last one is reading and writing learners. Now, it's obvious, they learn by reading. Okay, they're very happy to sit down with a book or a printout and read and take notes from it. They like writing their own condensed version of a passage. If the teacher gave them a book, maybe they'd read a paragraph and they'd write a short sentence themselves about what happened. And they find writing notes is easy. They don't have any problem writing notes. So let's look at some tips for reading and writing learners. If your class has some printouts, you could spend time reviewing the printout the teacher gave you. You could visit the library and find the books that you need about your subject, since reading and writing learners prefer to read books. You could write a passage about what you learned in the class at the end of the class to review. And you could rewrite texts into your own words. So, conclusion time. We all have different styles of learning, and it's about finding which style works best for you. If you know which style works best for you, you're going to find it much easier to learn new things or learn new vocabulary or learn whatever the teacher is teaching you in class. Remember, you can also be a mix of styles. I know for me, I need to use visual learning and auditory learning.
I hope this video were able to help you explore and discover your own learning styles. And likewise, the tips are also provided to us through this video clip. But what this presentation is trying to bring to all of us participants in audience. So simply, your learning styles and your learning preferences is the way in which you learn best. And these 4 learning styles can be grouped into 3 common learning styles. So as you can see from the slides, you could be a visual learner, an auditory learner, and kinesthetic learner. And according to our video, it could be a combination of 3 or more learning styles, especially nowadays the millennials like you and the Generation X. Now we can do multiple styles in doing our activities, but then we have to reflect as well. And in doing so, what was the result? What was the great impact upon our learning in our academic and school performances? So, like me, I am a combination of visual and auditory learner myself. How about you? How this video and assessment given you able to help you identify your learning styles? I hope so. So this will be a big help to all of you as we navigate and explore the next topic on how we can adjust and adapt to the new normal of education. And this also as well find your rhythm and learning. Now, moving forward, after knowing your learning styles and preferences, then it is important what is now, the what, the study habits, and the new normal. So I have here the definition of study habit from academic journals and from the dictionary.com. From the study habit, from the academic journals, study habit defined as an action which the students perform regularly and habitually in order to accomplish the task of learning. While from the dictionary.com, study habits defined as the behaviors used when preparing for tests or learning. So let us now take what are those actions referring to study habits. So this action may be reading, taking notes, holding study groups, assignments and examinations, and time management, and among others. On the other hand, what are the behaviors referring at? So the behaviors refer to the habits approaching study, like your styles, your learning styles, and also the learning environment in school and at home. That those are all contributory to develop your good study habits. Then also, behaviors to distraction. Are you learning kung maingay ba ang paligid or gusto mo ba yung tahimik? And then the setting. Ano ba ang gusto mo? Nakahiga ka ba? Nakatayo? Naglalakad? Tahimik? Or whatsoever. So those are the concrete manifestations and description on how are you going to identify your study habits, whether it is good or bad for you. And then, moving forward, so these things, study habits, we will compare our practices and observe identified practices to the new normal. And our new normal now is learning through remote option or distance learning. Then, moving forward, so what have we learned during distance learning and remote learning? So the question now is, what will stay the same in this situation? So distance learning again is our vocabulary of the day in pandemic and then remote learning. Now, let us watch this video again. Jonathan is the key player here. So while you are watching this video, try to reflect. Are you like Jonathan or the other classmates of Jonathan? Just to have for you the concrete examples of simulation on how study habits impact to Jonathan here.
Here's Jonathan studying for a test. And studying, and studying, and studying. And here he is getting his test results. All that studying and he still got an F. Why? The thing is, there's no one right way to study. Some methods might work great for one person and not at all for others. Everybody learns differently. In order to find a study method that's best for you, it's important to know your learning style. The four most popular learning styles are visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic, or hands-on. For most people, one of these methods will work best, but it's also possible for a combination of different styles to be effective. To discover your learning style, you can complete an online assessment. There's a wide variety of them available, consisting of multiple choice questions. However, you can also observe yourself and your previous learning experiences to get an idea of how you learn best. Let's circle back to Jonathan. When he's in class and his teacher is lecturing, he gets distracted pretty easily. Words tend to go in one ear and out the other. But when his teacher starts using visuals, Jonathan finds it easier to focus and understand the material. So he might be a visual learner. Now think about your history. How have you enjoyed learning in the past? Do you prefer watching over listening? Do you enjoy reading instead? Or maybe you learn best by doing, with hands-on experience. If none of these seem to grab you, give them each a try and see which one you tend to drift towards. Each learning style has its own study methods that work best with it. Let's take a look at how Jonathan and a few of his classmates study. As a visual learner, Jonathan finds it helpful to color code his notes. He finds it helps him to organize information and internalize it better. He also creates diagrams while studying, finding that they help him to better understand certain structures and ideas. Jonathan watches videos too, finding them helpful for extra information. Ruby is more of an auditory learner. She likes to study in a group and discuss the material with others. Sometimes she'll read her notes out loud because it helps her to hear what she's studying. In some classes, Ruby will record the lecture, with her teacher's permission of course, so that she can go back and listen to it later. Terrell finds that he learns best by reading and writing. He takes substantial notes during class and reads over them often. When he's trying to memorize something, he'll often write it out. He also makes sure to read and reread any materials his teacher has assigned the class. Raya is a kinesthetic learner. She's got a lot of energy and likes doing things. Labs and hands-on activities help her to understand certain ideas and topics. Sometimes she'll review her material while she's walking around. She also likes to take breaks in order to release some of her energy, allowing her to focus when she returns to studying. All four of these students are studying the same material, but they're doing so in different ways. Now, this doesn't guarantee that they'll all get the same grades, but by determining their learning style and finding study methods that work for them, they just might find themselves getting better results.
GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better life.
So there you have it. Here's the tips for different learning styles. You just read it or take a screenshot for your reference for the tips. And this scenario now leads us to our recalibration of our study habits in this present situation. Next slide. Alright, now I would like to share with you the 7 most powerful idea in learning today. So, as you can see in the slides, the first is, how do we learn today? So, from physical to digital. What does it mean? So, as I have mentioned in my previous slides, that the power of technology is now inevitable. So, digital literacy now is a trend that involves the consumption, comprehension, and curation of digital media. And this is directly tied to research literacy. So, yung pagre-research ang most hated activity ng karamihang mga estudyante because it doesn't fit to their used learning style. And both digital and digitized data sources serve as the primary research resources since then. Then another shift of learning is from standards to habits. So yan. So what are the standards? The shift from the purely academic standards. Magbabasa, papasok, magsasagot, papasa. Now the shift is to habits. It should be able to assist and guide our students to think critically and make it a habit. Kaya nga marami na tayo mga approaches na mga ginagamit because this support to the 21st century learning through proceeding the shift from institution to learner. Kayo na mismong mga estudyante ang magiging community of learners, community of learning. Kayo na yung institution of learner. Kung naririnig ninyo yung tungkol dyan sa mga PISA results, saan mahina ang mga estudyante, doon sa mathematical, scientific, and global awareness literacy. The next shift is from compliance to play. So, self-directed learning is almost certainly the core of future learning. Kaya nga, mayroon tayong modular distance learning modality kasi self-paced and not to allow the learners only to play with information and platforms and ideas, but how to utilize this information and platforms to access the tools and patterns of the 21st century life. Then another shift is from schools to communities. Why? Because while it is tempting for learners to create exotic projects, truly authentic learning experiences allow learners to self-direct personal change in pursuit of social change, which starts small at home and surrounding intimate communities. So another shift, number 5, is reaction to interaction. What does it mean? Meaning, game-based learning aggregates the power of learning simulations, social gaming, emotional immersion, and digital literacy to produce a net effect of self-actuation, transparency, and participation. The next shift is from isolation to connectivity. So through social media, mobile learning, blended learning, and other inherently connected learning experiences, it is possible to leverage the potential of interdependence. This occurs simply through crowded source knowledge and visually through curation and long-term digital communities. And the last tip is from privacy to transparency. So a natural consequence of digital and social media transparency is the opposite of closed traditional schooling. Hindi na pwede yung kasanayan natin, where the walls of the classroom and thick and the local educators and their policies govern, judge, and process everything. Kaya malaki ang role ng mga learners ngayon. You are the empowered learners in the education. So, moving ahead. Now, here are the tips or how we can adjust to study habits during COVID-19. Some of these statements are presented with pictures for your easy understanding. So, to recalibrate your study habits, then now, You have to stay organized. Look at the pictures, self-explanatory. Then avoid multitasking. Look at the pictures, your multiple hands doing similar things one at a time. And that is not good because it erodes our productivity and intelligence quotient. Another is making the most of video lectures. Kasi nga mabilis yung pacing, i-record ninyo para nababalikan nyo at nare-review. Another way to adjust is setting a schedule. Isulat ninyo what you gonna do from the time you wake up, naka-schedule na lahat yan. And it will help you to guide in your accomplishment of the task. Another is trading your strategies for a new one. You have to collaborate and engage with your classmates, then working with a group or team. So these are signifies in the different learning styles. And another is staying connected to other people. Kasi boring kapag tayo lang, wala tayong nakakausap. This is our best antidote to cope up with this new normal. Then another. So these are now the tips for good study habits according to Study Tips COVID-19 and Hamsar Student Life. So self-explanatory again. So you have to get dressed, parang pumapasok ka rin, para naka-mindset ka. Then establish a routine, kasama rin yun doon sa pagkakaroon ng time schedule. Then create a workplace. So sasabihin nyo, mahirap lang kami, wala kaming pambili, hindi malaki ang aming bahay. But what most importantly is to create your workspace, your learning area at home, kung ano man ang hitsura niyan, where you can contemplate and concentrate. Then another is, it is important for you to set boundaries. Kapag may schedule kang gagawin, sasabihin ng kaklase mo, ng kaibigan mo, tayo ay mag-chat-chat o so, tapusin nyo muna ito. Learn to say no. Then safeguard your spaces also. Kahit sa bahay, tell your parents, your siblings na ikaw ay nag-aaral for them not to distract you. Then take off distractions. Ayan, hanap ng lugar, iset ang mga microphone, mga maiingay. Kasi kung hindi ka used to ganun learning styles, you will not learn. Then take breaks also. Relax, repress, recharge, exercise. Then later, I will share you a Pomodoro technique on how you can do these study habits at the same time, adjusting to the new normal. And another is you can ask questions if you do not understand thing, if you do not understand the content of your modules, or please ask questions. Make it a habit because that is the new trend now of the 21st century, critical thinking skills. No, and also no, it's okay to feel anxious. Minsan medyo para bang kakaiba na yung nararamdaman ko. Normal yan. You can outsmart your anxious brain by doing, relaxing, and embracing the new normal. Yan na yun eh. This is the normal na talaga yan eh. So, wag kayong magpapanik. Call a friend lang kayo. Talk to someone if you are in this particular feeling of anxiety. Moving forward, so what are the tricks now to education in the new normal? Very important. Ito yung dapat na at the end of the day, at least you gain a knowledge and you will be able to reflect also how this knowledge can be transferred into skills. Hindi pwede kasing puro cognitive load lang tayo. Kailangan na i-apply natin. And also, we need mindsets. Kailangan yung mindsets, tanggapin natin yung katotohanan, kaya nga embracing the new normal. These are the three important words for us to imagine and internalize. Gaining the knowledge, putting into practice, and then set your mind. If you succeeded in having and possessing or equipping yourselves with this, then definitely 90% you can adapt to the new normal. And once you're able to adapt with the situation, the mindsets will help you to bounce back. And that is true resiliency. Resiliency is our ability to cope up, to adapt, and to survive our present situation, not only today, but in the days, months, and years to come. Now, moving on. So I have here the video presentation of the time management Pomodoro. I know it will help you.
We procrastinate because we believe that a project or task is too big to finish. But when you break that huge task into 25-minute segments, it becomes easily achievable. The Pomodoro technique was developed by Francesco Cirillo in 1980s. If you don't know, Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. Cirillo used a kitchen timer shaped like a tomato as his personal timer when he was a university student, and thus the method's name. The technique can help you power through distractions and get things done while taking frequent breaks. Best of all, it's probably one of the simplest productivity methods to implement since all you need is a timer. Here's how to get started with Pomodoro. Number 1. Choose a task to be accomplished. Number 2. Set the timer to 25 minutes and work until the timer rings. Number 3. Take a 5-minute break and restart the task. Number 4. Take a longer break every 4 Pomodoro sessions. Simple, right? Let's break it down a bit further. When choosing the task you want to accomplish, make sure it's just one task. If you want to study, don't check your phone or browse Facebook at the same time. You don't want to decrease your productivity by working on 5 things at once. I've already discussed how multitasking is ineffective in another video. Do what you can to minimize interruptions and make sure that everything you don't need is put away before you begin. Shut your office door, turn off your phone, and close all unnecessary websites. Also, prepare everything you need for the task at hand, as it will mess with your focus if you run around looking for things that you might need. Like a cooking chef, get all your ingredients ready. Another thing you would want to have at hand is a notepad and a pen. When you're working, your mind might wander off a bit. It's not uncommon to suddenly remember that you need to take out the trash, call your friend before lunch, etc. Don't allow yourself to become distracted if ideas or thoughts about other things pop into your head. Write them down on your notepad and set them aside for later. For now, focus on your set task. Got everything ready? Great, time to start the timer. You don't actually need to go out and buy a special tomato-shaped kitchen timer. The countdown app built into your smartphone will do. When setting a time, it doesn't have to be exactly 25 minutes either. The creator of the technique used it for 25, but for you it might be more productive if you set the timer for 20 or maybe 30 minutes. I highly recommend you experiment with session lengths and find what works best for you. After all, the technique is not set in stone and should be customized to your length of focus before you need a break. For me, the Pomodoro technique is just a way of breaking that mental resistance we often have before starting something. That's why I use it to get the wheel rolling. It's hard for me to get started, but I find it super easy to keep on going. For that reason, I'll often find myself still hammering away at a task after the timer already buzzed. When I start losing focus, that's when I'll take a break. Each focus session is one Pomodoro. When you complete one session, you take a 5-minute break before starting a new one. However, this may not suit everyone. Some people might find regular short breaks too distracting, especially if they come at times when inspiration is flowing. Like I said, I often just continue my session without stopping. What you do during the break is also completely up to you. Get a glass of water to stay hydrated, go to the bathroom if you need to, or do something from your to-do list. Personally, I always stretch, because the stiffness from sitting in a chair starts killing me otherwise. When the break is over, reset your timer for the next session and continue your work. When you've completed 4 Pomodoro sessions, take a 20 to 30 minute break. Use it to have lunch, go for a walk, or read a book. Anything works as long as it takes you away from your desk for a while and clears your mind of what you were doing before. The goal of Pomodoro technique is to help you to get into the zone and focus, but it's also to remind you to come up for air. It can also help you find your sweet spot, since tracking your completed Pomodoros can help you understand how you're spending your time. You can pinpoint the times during the day when you are most likely to focus properly and times when you struggle to get things done. That way you can adjust the way you work. And I'll be honest, I rarely complete all 4 Pomodoro sessions. Since I usually keep on going after the timer rings, my one session is usually way longer than 25 minutes and there is no need to do multiple sessions. Also, sometimes I'm just having a bad day or I'm feeling lazy and I'll only complete one 25-minute session and call it a day. To me, maintaining the habit is more important than the length of time spent on the task. Even if I only did one 25-minute session, I still accomplished something that day and didn't break my habit. Alright, now that I've covered everything, I highly suggest you try out the Pomodoro technique yourself. It has been my go-to strategy when I need to get something done and is yet to fail me. Hope it works for you as much as it works for me and helps you become better than yesterday.
Okay, so to recalibrate your study habits, take Pomodoro. Study less, study smart. That summarizes about recalibrating your study habits in the new normal. Before I finally end my discussion or session, I would like to leave you this website because you are the education of the future. So after this and in the days to come, please keep asking yourself, do you think these new norms will still transpire even if pandemic eases? Why do you think so? And ask yourselves, how do you continually cope up with the new normal education after COVID-19? So, for your guidepost from Charles Darwin, he says that in this time and in the days to come and months to come, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. So adapt the new normal in education, embrace the new normal, continue learning because your education must continue. You are the future of the world. And thank you very much for bearing with me and having me this webinar. Hiraya Manawari, may all your aspirations come true. To God be the highest glory. Again, thank you very much, Sir Edwin Casilla. Here ends my presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Katanay, for your share of knowledge on how we can recalibrate our study habits in this new normal environment. Our second guest speaker is an Honorable Education Program Specialist of the Department of Education of Davao City, Dr. Elsie Entero Gagabe.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, and I am part of the facilitator speaker to present some topics on how to enhance our skills, our knowledge, and our abilities in terms of the art of study habits in this new normal. My name is Elsie Igagabe, and I am from the DepEd Davao City Division, Region 11, as an education program supervisor. Let me state the purpose of this webinar. My part is to present this lecture presentation just purposely to share insights to reignite our consciousness, especially to those young and adult learners on these newer sensibilities on how study habits and skills must be learned and relearned to overcome challenges with the present crisis that we are having, and thus we can sustain towards quality development. Let me present to you the objective of my presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this short lecture presentation, our audience shall at least have these 3 learning objectives. Number 1, we can reinvent through self-reflection on our own study habits and skills. Second, we can also conceptualize some newer direction and models of the art of study habits. And then, simple to end up, before we take off, then we can develop some next steps plan for a tangible actualization. Okay, but let me begin with this. The topic presentation is all about the reinvention of the study habits and skills, and then some concepts, models of study habits and skills, and our next step plan for tangible actions. Okay. But in this new era, the challenges that we are facing, we can notice that because of the environment that we are living, changes, chaos, complexities are felt. And our personality development and our inner self has been affected. And we can notice also that some unfavorable study habits that is happening in the current days, or even before. Unfavorable study habits such as we can experience inefficient time management. We can have this, we experience some lack of planning and even concentration. And with this, our skills in reading tend to get low or get even poor. And thus, we are ineffective in test-taking techniques. With this, there is a domino effect. We begin to fail or even fail to inform our teachers of our difficulties with our schoolwork. And also, we have this failure to ask for their help. And thus, unfavorable attitude towards teachers' classroom behavior and methods are also felt. With this, there are several reasons or factors that can contribute to make this significant events or circumstances that can happen. Thus, some unfavorable study habits can happen. But we wish to overcome. As you can see in the next slide, we wish to make it better. We wish to read more, study more, motivate ourselves, but then again, our minds and our body sometimes cannot connect or cannot unite. Our mind says, go, grab your book and study, even go to the library or find a good space where you can find concentration. However, there are many distractions comes along. In some circumstance, we try to reinvent. We try to do something. However, we fail to discover that what is in front of us is really useful and significant to our change. With this, we wish to learn. We wish to learn and become fast. However, there are some circumstances on the things that we encountered. Number 1, if we wish to learn anything faster, we have to stop multitasking. According to some researches, multitasking usually causes new information to go to the wrong part of our brain. And that's true because we experience that. And then moving back and forth between tasks can waste productivity, as our brain, of course, cannot pay attention to multiple tasks at the same time. Well, there are people or there are learners or students who can really multitask. They can even simply put concentration when there's TV going on or music that is playing. However, it has been advised that to make it more faster, we can stop multitasking. Number 2 is this reinventing the wheel. If there is an idea that exists and found to be effective, whether it's research-based or if it is experience-based, then we can reuse the wheel. Sometimes we can find someone who already mastered the skills, then we are willing to learn and model the path that they are following. So in this way, we can learn new things in a shorter period of time. Number 3 is that we can allow our brain, or we can allow our mind to wander. We can take some relaxation or schedule some quality time to let our mind wander, as healthy breaks allows our brain to rest and avoid creative blocks. I used to call this the tanga-tanga moment, with a coffee or a tea or even sweets. Going for a walk will also help, or having a long bath are some good examples of mind wandering. And I am pretty sure, guys, that you also have your own style or approaches or techniques when you try to relax your mind. And then we repeat, and repeat. But of course, the more attempts of repetition, and of course that must be correct to learn something, this will make our brain reinforce its necessary skill until it is done subconsciously. It will be a part of our system. And then if we can successfully do items number 1 to 4, we are now ready to relate new learning to prior knowledge. In this manner, guys, we allow our brain to create connections between new information and what we have already know. This will help us remember those things later, because that is in the part of our system. So given this learning anything faster, 1 to 5, why don't we try? As you can see in the next slide, try means time to reinvent ourselves. On the next slide, it is emphasized. Making time to reinvent yourself is one of the significant change that you can do. However, to make time, even sometimes it is found to be very difficult. Managing our time, taking some time, and even reinventing ourselves. If we do not know who we are, what we are, and how are we doing, then it's really impossible for us. That is why we need to discover or know ourselves again, on which we try to look back through reflection. On the next slides, this is a framework that I have found in the Google, and thanks to the authors, on which this is a presentation on the skills, on the skill areas for building a student resilience. In here, if we try to reflect on our own capabilities and our capacity, we become resilient, and this is really important. In the center circle, being a resilient individual is an important and significant, and in this individual can find a lot of opportunities for service, on which there is a meaning in terms of giving services. The sincere, honest, and pure intention can lead us to give social engagement, on which another opportunity to connect to others. And this opportunity to connect to others, we can know better ourselves. We can better discover our self-awareness, and thus we can produce self-care. This self-awareness and self-care through connectedness to others, by giving services to others, there's an opportunity for us to self-reflect on our capabilities and our capacity. And this is the opportunity wherein we can have more attention and focus to ourselves. That, oh, I am capable of doing this, so this is I am, and where I am, and where am I leading to. So in this manner, guys, the self-mastery, the self-efficacy is an opportunity for us to redevelop and reinvent ourselves. The skills, we can go back to the habits that we are having. The old and bad habits can be replaced into newer sensibilities of good and new study habits. Thus, our skill is developed and enhanced. However, in the next slide, we can now make ourselves do some reinvention. The previous slides that we have reviewed is that we can now begin to discover ourselves. By discovering ourselves, that means we know our capabilities and our capacity. The skill is enhanced. We can now plans of how we organize our study notes, our space, our environment in the room, or perhaps outside our house, outside home, or in a quiet place, or even a place that you really like to stay, wherever it is. You try to plan that in your mind. And then try things out. Discover new things. If this works with to our classmates, it also works for you. And this will make you happy when you can manage yourself. Managing yourself is that you dominate your body, your mind dominates your body follows the command of the mind, the sincere and pure intention of the mind that speaks, that you grab your notes, you read, you refocus, you comprehend what's going on with the lesson, with the notes, with the challenges that the teachers have given you. With the management of yourself, ladies and gentlemen, you can master your courage. The courage to overcome the difficulties on whatever difficulties that you feel inside in you. The overcoming of these challenges. To do that, mastering our courage first starts within ourselves, then we can use the support group. We find our friends, the friends that can support us, the friends that can honestly provide us anything that can motivate us, can rebuild our passion, that can burn our desire to be motivated, to prove that we can learn faster. And then again, we can remind ourselves of the daily commitments that we are having. Sometimes failure can occur in some circumstance, but it's okay to fail. According to some authors, one of our favorite is Zig Ziglar or Stephen Covey, but the hope is there. We need to learn, relearn, unlearn, and then resume. But then again, we try to redo and reinvent so that we can push and get into, learn to discover ourselves through these next slides. If we know ourselves better, then we can review the models of study habits and skills. So what are these models of study habits and skills? There are lots of readings that can be found in the internet. You can Google it. However, some basic reminders or thoughts that we can try to look into to remind what type of learners are we? What type of learner are you? Look at these types of learning styles. Are we Or are you an auditory learner? Or are you a visual learner? Are you a kinesthetic learner? If we observe in the Facebook or other social media, there are guys or friends that can do easily TikTok, whether it is a dance or a song or a monologue. We can identify what type of learner they are. Say, if our friend can do easily TikTok in 1 or 2 minutes and can post it on social media, are our friends auditory, visual, or kinesthetic? They can easily perform tasks in that social media with music and dance. They can paint or they can draw or they can sketch with music and at the same time do some artwork. And then most or some of our friends can easily learn when they listen to lectures or to ebooks and any form that they can fast learn. So it is better for us to understand again this time on what type of learner are we and our learning styles. And if you know yourself well on your learning style, then we can comprehend the type of learner are we. On the next slide, there are 4 types of learners given the learning style. This is a framework coming again from the authors that's posted in the Google. There's what we call this pragmatist type of learner. The learner that likes to have a go, to try things to see if they work. So they call that an active experimentation. Having that active experimentation through trying things, like for example, they wish to study under a lilim of a punong kahoy. So it's sweet and very calm. There are people also, or type of learner, that they wish to study with a music or classical music, rock music, soft rock music, etc. Given that I have to have a go active experimentation, we can, or the person, the learner can have a concrete experience of this. They are coined as the activists that prefers doing and experiencing. Given that experiences are concrete experience, they can say many things and they can prove to themselves if this was effective to them or will be effective to them because this worked to them. Given that, through this active experimentation and concrete experiencing, the pragmatist and the activist, this learner or this student can have a reflective observation. If the activities or the experimentations they have done or your classmates have done, then one can reflect, sana all. Yon. Or sana mag-work din sa akin. So given that reflection or observation, one can try things out. And then that learner can have that abstract conceptualization, can build a theory on which it says, wants to understand underlying reasons, concepts, and relationships. If the study habit of Mario, study habit of Anna, or some of my friends worked for them, I have to discover what works for me. I have this type of learning style, then I could be this type of learner. And given these models of study habits and skills that we can try out, then on the next slides, we can presume that we can level up our active experimentation, the experiences, the reflection, and the abstraction. On the next slide, we can now simulate. There's one, the accommodating, the diverging, the converging, and the assimilating. And this is on the next slide. As you can see, accommodating people given the type of learning style that they're having, the learning skills that they are having now, they can make things done. They can lead not other people, but can lead himself or herself. She or he can take risk. She can begin, initiate, and being adaptable and practical. So from the individual self, of this learner, we can see that he can now manage himself. Doing that, can lead, can take risks, can initiate, can adapt. It seems that this person, this learner, is ready to diverge. He can be imaginative. He can understand people, what's going on. And he can easily recognize problem, some flaws, and can discuss through brainstorm and open-minded with any forms of discussions or topics. In this way, this person or this individual can plan, can create new models, can define the problem, its root cause, and thus develop theories, and to top it all, being so patient, because that's important. And be ready to converge. He is now into solving problems. If this study habit or skill does not work for him, then he can make decision. He can redirect, he can remodel, he can reinvent. And then can find reason deductively why is he redirecting? Because he is now logical. So then, this model of study habits and skills can be a very good takeoff on these current challenges. Some authors gave us tips for good study habits in these current days, the pandemic COVID-19. On the next slides, it's very practical, and everyone is doing this, I guess. Like, if we are at home, for employees who are having graduate school, or for college students, or for senior high school, or even elementary, we encourage ourselves to get dressed before we start our day learning. Of course, when we get dressed, we have to refresh. We have eaten our breakfast and then took some hot or cold shower, whatever it is that we can find some comfort. Then we clean and we get dressed with our favorite dress. The dress that we are comfortable, because it can support our confidence and our courage to move on further and sustain the day. We can create a workspace. Every one of us is unique in creating a workspace, whether we are just in a corner of our room, outside of the house, or even under the tree, or even inside the car, or even wherever we can feel comfortable. And then, given that, we can establish a routine in the DepEd, in the elementary level, or even high school. We have this individual work week plan or daily tasks that even kinder, the early childhood learners, we try to impose the idea of 7 o'clock breakfast, 7 to 7:30, and so on and so forth until the day. Then 8 o'clock, Filipino. 9 o'clock, reading. 10 o'clock, art activity, etc. So, if these young people, the minions, the cute minions, elementary graders, can establish a routine through the help of their parents, then why are we adults can't? Then we can set boundaries. If it is time for us to take a break and wander our mind, then we can do that. Distractions are everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. And it is up to you, because you can now manage yourself. You can turn off the distractions. Whether the distraction is within you, so you turn off yourself being distracted. If it's not really working, then you take a break. Perhaps you can go outside, breathe some air, talk to someone who just passes, who passed by, like say, hi, hello, saan ka magpunta? Things like that. Or ask questions to your teacher when you're in online, or ask questions to your classmates or peers, your support group, through chat, through video call, through messenger, or ask questions to your parents who's just watching you, or to your siblings. Just anything. Just can take a break. But of course, these questions must be relevant and in line, in relation or connection with what you are studying. And you better know that it's okay to feel anxious. When we feel anxious, then that's a sign that we are trying hard our best to overcome this difficulty, because we are now getting worried on what could happen next. In the next slides, given this some practical tips, at least now we can visualize that we can find a good studying spot. Like, oh, saan kaya ako ngayon? Kasi hindi naman tayo pwede mag-study sa coffee shop, sa Starbucks, or doon sa tea house. Hindi na pwede doon. So we have to find a good studying spot. Where could it be? And then avoid social media. If it's necessary to turn off the Wi-Fi when you are reading, turn it off. Turn off the cell phone also. But if it's necessary to find relevant readings to internet, then just post perhaps in your wall, in the FB wall, or in Twitter, or in any social media, that do not disturb. Mind is working. Brain is working. So yun, you stay away from your phone. But, well, it's really inevitable. But it's up to you to manage yourself. And if you really don't have this willpower, perhaps you can proceed to number 5. You take a break. While taking a break, you can organize some lecture notes again. What was the learning competencies all about that is being presented by my teacher? What was the topic all about? Where was the part that I find it difficult? Or perhaps if you really cannot overcome such questions and difficulty, you join, or you even create a study group. The chat group, the group chat. See? And it's very important, because this is an opportunity for us to encourage our support group, to support each other, encourage each other. And then taking a break sometime with our music, aromatherapy. The aromatherapy for some adults is what we call the liniment oils. And it can, it seems a joke, but it is a good and significant aromatherapy for the aging ones. Or you can visit your plants and talk to them. You may say, hello, my dear plant, I have a difficulty with my algebra or in my calculus. I cannot find the derivation through a longhand computation. Perhaps I cannot find my variables on which I need to further study my mixed method analysis. Or perhaps, plant, can you help me remember the variables that I need to do in order for me to identify a good data for discrete or continuous data, perhaps for my statistics analysis, things like that. And leave time for the last minute review. You need to understand again your best learning styles. Are you with music? Are you with art, auditory, kinesthetic, or visual? Do you like to study through reading, comprehending, listening, or watching, etc.? And then, of course, ladies and gentlemen, it is really important to find or make a study time as part of the routine. Even though it's everyone's predicament sometimes that we cannot find an effective way to manage our schedule, to prioritize our schedule or schedule our priorities, things like that. Now, so given that, We have went through with self-reflection on our own study habits and skills. And then we have learned, at least relearn, what types of, what are our learning styles and what type of learners are we. This is the time that we can at least start some small steps in making our next step plan for a tangible actualization. On the next slide, this is now the time to put your plan into action. How will you do that? By doing so, again, go to the mirror, look at yourself, say, "Hey, beautiful," or "Hey, handsome, are you ready to overcome your own challenges?" Studying is important. We cannot let this moment pass by without any learnings or new learnings, whether it is from the book or whether it's within. Put your plan into action. How do we do that again? There is what we call the continuous improvement on the next slide. They usually this as plan, do, study, and act. You define your objective. Why do you need to study? And what are the things that we need to learn? What are the learning competencies? What are the topics? What are the difficulties? What are the expected outputs by my teacher? And then questions. Predict. You plan. You collect and answer the questions that you have posed. The data are these learning competencies that your subject is requiring, the expected outputs from the teachers. Then plan everything. What must be? How many subjects I am taking now? Are the subjects too difficult for me? Things like that. And then if you can organize these sets of questions, these sets of requirements, and also the assumptions, then you can carry out the plan. You collect what are the competencies for algebra, for calculus, for research, for literature, for English, and begin to analyze this data. These learning competencies that each learning areas are requiring. What are the expected outputs that my teachers are expected me to deliver? Then do it, carry out, study, complete the things that you need to do. Analyze on how are you going to do it. And then you can summarize what you have learned. By doing this, so you can take some support group, create a study group, join a study group, and then act according to your own pace. Given that you know your objectives, you know the learning competencies, the desires of your teachers on how you will learn things, how you will discover things given the learning competencies and the performance tasks, you establish well, you understood well the content of the lesson, the topic, and you have delivered the output. You have developed the technique in the delivering the output, whether it is a soft copy of your outputs, whether it is a longhand computation of your calculus, whether it is an essay or a paper, a critic paper, analysis paper, or even a research paper proposal. You can do that if all of the assumptions are satisfied. Now I think it is time for you to plan. Time for you to do this. On the next slide, where are you now? And the time starts now. After my talk, at least, ladies and gentlemen, you have reviewed yourself through self-reflection by rethinking on how it is important to sustain and survive. The COVID-19 in the current days are challenging every one of us to survive. But this time, it is an add-on for us to encourage and challenge ourselves to overcome the difficulty by making ourselves successful in terms of learning through effective, efficient, and productive way of study habits and skills. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the indulgence of listening. God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gagabe, and for your remarkable message for this webinar. In behalf of the organizers, I would like to present to the guest speakers this certificate of appreciation. Let me read the content. Mind and Integrity College awards this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Elvira Katamay and Dr. Elsie Entero Gagabe for being the guest speakers for the webinar entitled Recalibrating Study Habits in this New Normal Environment, given this 4th day of December 2020. Signed, Hannah Trinquite, Class President of Section Colossians, Pastor Romy Nicolas, Guidance Counselor and the Facilitator of this event, and Dr. Edwin Casilla, School Director. For the closing remarks, let us hear from our School Director, Dr. Edwin T. Casilla.
As I end this wonderful webinar, I would like to express my gladness and gratitude towards our respected speakers, Dr. Elvira Katalay and Dr. Elsie Entero Gagabe. They both shown love and care for this generation, that they gave up their time, tested wisdom, and the precious portions of their hectic schedules. We, in Mind and Integrity College, salute you. I also thank Grade 12 Colossians, with the supervision of Pastor Romy Nicolas and the rest of the MIC faculty for the relentless effort you did to make this webinar possible. And to the young people who watched and participated in this webinar, I pray that a brighter light of a desire to learn have grown in your hearts and minds. March towards your future. They are yours to conquer. Above all and in all, to God be all the glory.
Thank you, Dr. Casilla, and once again, thank you very much for all the audiences of this webinar. After this webinar, you will be requested to answer an evaluation form for this event. Kindly coordinate with your advisor for the link of the Google form. Thank you once again. I am your host for today, Ms. Marifet Icas.